أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حتى إذا جاء أحدهم الموت قال رب ارجعون لعلي أعمل صالحا فيما تركت كلا إنها كلمة هو قائلها ومن ورائهم برزخ إلى يوم يبعثون, until death approaches one of them and they say, O Lord, send me back, so that I might do righteous deeds in what I've left behind. No, this is just a word they are saying, and before them is a barrier, is a barzakh, until the day they are resurrected. Sadaqallahu al-Ali al-Azim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this journey in which we are going step by step from this life into the next. Where do we go when we die? What realm is this? According to what we learn from the Holy Quran and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after we die, we go to a realm known as the Barzakh. This is a sort of immediate realm. We do not immediately go to heaven or immediately go to hell or immediately have the resurrection, but instead we go to this temporary place to continue our journey. So we get born into this life, we live this life, we pass away, we go to this new place called the Barzakh, we live for a while, according to what is narrated. Many of us, most of us in fact, will eventually get a bit tired in the Barzakh. After all, we might be there for 100,000 years, for example. We might get a little bit sleepy and we might go to sleep, and only a few people will really be intensely aware the whole time in the Barzakh. Then there will be a break in our awareness or in the nature of creation, and then the actual afterlife, as we oftentimes discuss it with the Sirat and heaven and hell, will be in front of us. So this Barzakh realm is an immediate realm. It's something which is immediately after this life, but not the final heaven, hell, mizan, sirat, and all of the things we know will happen after the Barzakh. Which of course does mean barrier, and it's reflective of the fact that between the physical existence, which is the one I'm in right now, as far as I know, and this next existence, there is a sort of veil or a sort of barrier. Generally speaking, there isn't really an interaction. There is, by and large, a separation between this world and the world of the deceased. They do their thing, we do our thing. And this example of a barrier is also used in the Holy Quran, where it speaks about the two seas meeting each other. For those of us who are familiar with the ayah, there is the salt water and the fresh water, and there is a sort of invisible barrier between them. Some of us might have seen this in real life or in images, estuaries, for example, where you have a river meeting the ocean, and there is a sort of barrier, and each side is carrying out its own existence. This is the image of the separation between this life and the next. So the angel of death meets us and escorts us into the Barzakh. The way that happens is that our soul is removed from the body, but maintains a sort of body for it to live in the Barzakh. Now, this is a different kind of body. It doesn't involve physical hands and physical eyes. To use an analogy, it is lighter, it can move faster, it's very different. One of the analogies that is used both in the Holy Quran and Hadith is something all of us can relate to, and that is when we go to sleep. Many of us like our sleep a lot. What do we do when we sleep? We dream. And in our dreams, we can do all sorts of things. We can fly around, we can fly through walls, we can make things appear and disappear. And so there is an analogy between sleeping and dream life and the Barzakh. In fact, it is narrated that when we go to sleep, sometimes our soul extends out from the body and sees all sorts of divine realities and interesting things, and then comes back to the physical body during the daytime. So every single day of our lives, excluding those days when we might stay up all night revising for exams and so forth, we get a taste of what it's going to be like in the next life. It's a reminder that we are pre-programmed for a higher journey and a higher reality, and it's only right now that we are very much tied to the physical world. And in fact, one narration, one hadith, that has always stayed in my mind is that if you disbelieve in death, then prevent yourself from going to sleep. Can you do that? You might be able to do it for a day. If you try really hard, maybe for 2 days. Unless you have some medical condition keeping you from sleeping, you're not going to be able to do it forever. Eventually, you will go to sleep. Similarly, you cannot keep yourself from dying forever. Eventually, you will pass on. And if you disbelieve in the resurrection, if you disbelieve that Allah is going to wake you up from your final resting place, then keep yourself from waking up. Can you keep yourself from waking up? You cannot. You have those days when sometimes you really, really want to go to sleep, but you can't. Similarly, when it is time to be raised up in the resurrection, we will not be able to stop that either. So there is a lot of comparison between sleep and the Barzakh in some of our thought. So what happens once we get into the Barzakh? Well, immediately the soul is going to be in a sort of denial because it's spent its entire existence attached to this body and very dependent on it. So it's going to be hovering very closely. Perhaps this is one reason why it is said that the soul is aware of what happens to the body. If, inshallah, it is shrouded and buried and the prayers are recited over it, that it will have some awareness of these things, even though it is no longer receiving physical sensations from the body. It doesn't need to be there, but it doesn't know anything else. Sometimes, for example, God forbid, if you get kicked out of your house, if you've lived in your house your whole life, you might have a tendency to stay by your house because it's what you are used to. Some of the things that happen after that are a bit scary, but I'm going to say them anyway because we have to say them. One of them, as I mentioned, is seeing Malak al-Maut, which happens before. Another is we will see Imam Ali, alayhi salam. This is emphasized in the hadith, especially through Ahlul Bayt, alayhi salam. We will see Imam Ali at the moment of death. And like the angel of death, he will appear in the form of our deeds and our faith. If we have purified our souls and been good people, we will see the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salam, in a very beautiful and inviting form. After all, we believe the essence of the Imams is light. We will enjoy seeing him, just like we would have enjoyed seeing him in person when he was walking on earth. And then we will be very happy with that and honored. And if you are an especially good person, you may see the Holy Prophet, Hazrat Fatima, and all of the Imams coming to greet you, inshallah. But we will definitely see Imam Ali. There's no person who will not. But for those who fought against his values, who fought against justice, who fought against truth, who fought against goodness, he will be in a very terrifying form, just as he was towards his enemies during this life. So again, what we bring with us will be the lens through which we see the commander of the faithful. At that point, some of us will endure questioning in the grave. Interestingly, it is narrated from the commander of the faithful himself, alayhi salam, that not everyone experiences questioning in the grave. Perhaps many of us will have our true questioning after the Barzakh. But some of us will be questioned in the grave. And again, this questioning will either be easy or difficult. For someone who lives and dies in the way of Allah, who dedicates their life to truth and service, this questioning will not be the scary thing we usually hear about. It will be nice and pleasant. And the two angels that question them will not be Munkar and Nakir, or the disliked, scary angels, but it will be Mubashir and Bashir, the angels bringing good news, because this person is confessing to things that are only good. But for those who have done severe wrong in this life, the worst of the worst, it will be Munkar and Nakir, the hated angels questioning them, even though they are the same entities, but it is how we perceive them that will be different. And at that moment, just like for the rest of our time in the hereafter, we will speak only the truth. There are no contrived answers. There are no checkbox answers. There are no answers based on what I'm supposed to say. When we are asked, what do we worship? It's not going to be, I've checked off Muslim on my identity card, so I worship Allah. That's not sufficient. We are going to confess to what we really worship. Do we worship Allah? Do we worship our ego? Do we worship our appearance? Do we worship our lineage? Do we worship our country or our racial background or our money, our profession, whatever it happens to be? We will speak the truth. How did we spend our life? What did we do? We will speak the absolute truth in the hereafter. So we have to be prepared. We have to be honest with ourselves. The surface answers that work in this world will not work in the hereafter. We will speak only the truth about things. After that, something else that is very frightening will happen, and that is the squeezing of the grave. Why this happens, God knows best, but perhaps it is to purify us and take out remaining impurities that might affect our ability to interact with life in the Barzakh. However, we can take comfort in the fact that this is something which is temporary, and although it will be difficult and uncomfortable, it is something that will pass, and then we will continue on to the rest of our new life in the Barzakh. Stay tuned for the next episode in which we will continue to trace step by step our life in the Barzakh. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.